Happy New Year. What a great time of year to get started on new things, right? Well, somebody put this on my desk. They said, you should read this article out of Financial Advisor magazine called Finding the Best Clients by Russ Allen Prince and Brett Van Bortle. And so I read it and highlighted some things I thought were interesting. It says, cultivating centers of influence is the best way to grow a profitable investment management business. This perspective is commonly known in the industry, which is why the greater majority of financial advisors are focusing on building meaningful relationships with centers of influence. That's not a secret. About 9 out of 10 financial advisors are already making efforts to cultivate these centers of influence. More telling is that speaking relatively few advisors are having very much success cultivating centers of influence. Now, I didn't know what very much success meant until I read further, and it said, overall, only about 10% report they've been very successful. And yet, it says here that overall 70% of financial advisors want to learn how to effectively cultivate centers of influence. So I'm reading, I'm saying, what? And I go a little further, and it ends up, here's how they summarize it. It's an industry truism that to be extremely successful, the answer is cultivating centers of influence. While most financial advisors are making such efforts, few are obtaining consequential results. The reason for this is very few financial advisors are systematically employing a methodology that will enable them to succeed, and that's why 70% are extremely interested in learning how. A methodology? You know, when I went through this, I read it, and I underlined and highlighted one word specifically. And that word was building meaningful relationships. And I thought to myself, there's the issue. You know, they're interested in building a meaningful relationships with centers of influence. You know, these relationships are good for me. But are they good for the center of influence? Maybe that should be the focus. Maybe that's truly what's meaningful. Building a relationship with a center of influence that is good for the center of influence, because most of them would go right around the center of influence if they could just get to their clients. And they wonder why they're not having success. I'm not sure anybody, outside of business or in business, wants a superfluous relationship like that. See, if you want to build something that's great for somebody else, you have to address what they need. And the problem with CPAs, if you want to work with CPAs, is simple. Address the risk inherent in their model. The biggest risk CPAs are focusing on today that they're addressing is the client retention risk. The risk associated with holding on to their best clients. Also, the risk of too narrow a brain trust. And on top of that, what also leads to their sleepless nights is the risk of lack of organic growth. See, you're not going to have that. You're not going to have organic growth. You're not going to have better client retention risk if you keep sending your clients out to somebody else because you're incapable of doing the work they need done. So you want to build a relationship with the centers of influence? You want to do something meaningful for them? Then eliminate that risk. They don't need another hammer. They don't need another relationship to just replace a relationship they have. They need a relationship to replace all their relationships. Be the person that says, you know what? I'm going to be able to give you things that you need done for your best so you can eliminate all these other people you're working with. I'm going to do something for you that helps you be better for them. Be the conduit to people that are great. You may not be great at all things, but you know a lot of people that are great at things. Be the conduit to that center of influence of all the greatness he needs to take care of his very best. Then you build a meaningful relationship that's not just meaningful to you, but meaningful to him. That success ratio goes up from there, I'm sure. See, it was surprising to me when I read this article. Not so much because it's hard, but because you don't need a methodology. You just need to be a human being. Care about somebody else. Care. And then you'll find your success there. So you want a New Year's resolution? It's that time of the year, right? Why don't you make a New Year's resolution that instead of just doing something that's good for me, why don't I do something that's going to be good for somebody else? Where instead of it being best for me, why isn't it just best for them? Help other people help other people. And then watch that travel to what you call success. That's meaningful. Happy New Year.